Well, look, Camilla, I think as the Prime Minister said over the weekend, people voted for change at the last general election, and at the moment people aren't feeling that change, and I think that's reflected in the results on Thursday. And you know, if I think about the NHS, for example, where we are making real progress, waiting lists have fallen 6 months in a row, the 2 million more appointments we promised in our first year, we actually delivered 7 months early. We're now standing at over 3 million. You know, if you're one of the people who's come off the waiting list, you'll be delighted. But if you're one of the 7 million cases still on the waiting list, you're probably shouting at the telly at this very moment saying,
"Have you ever watched a politician squirm on live television?" That's exactly what happened during a recent interview on GB News when Labour MP Wes Streeting found himself under real pressure. Host Camilla took off the kid gloves, ditching the gentle tone often used with left-leaning politicians, and came out swinging. Her questions were sharp, direct, and relentless, with little room to breathe. Streeting was rattled, struggling to defend Labour's shaky image and a growing list of controversial policies. Before we continue, tell us, are you enjoying the video so far? If yes, please take a moment to like and share it, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Now, let's get back to it.
But if you're one of the 7 million cases still on the waiting list, you're probably shouting at the telly at this very moment saying, don't tell me things are improving, I'm still waiting. So it's a good example, whether it's waiting lists, whether it's interest rates falling, whether it's wages rising faster and higher than inflation. These are moves in the right direction. Will people be feeling the benefits of that yet? No. That's why the Prime Minister said he wants to go further and faster on delivering real improvements that people feel. Because if they don't feel it by the next general election, they will look for change elsewhere.
Political interviews often feel like they're on autopilot. The presenter asks a list of predictable questions. The politician sticks to their carefully rehearsed lines, and the whole thing ends without revealing anything new or meaningful. But what happens when a host decides to throw out the rule book? That's exactly what happened in the recent showdown between Camilla Termini and Wes Streeting on GB News. It wasn't your typical back and forth. Right from the opening moments, Camilla came out swinging, and she didn't hold back. Instead of easing in with polite small talk, she went straight for the numbers. Out of the 285 seats under Streeting's watch, Labour had lost 197. Then came the blow. So, you're actually less popular now than in 2021, even during your so-called political honeymoon. No warm-up, no fluff, just a brutal statistic laid bare. It was a striking shift from how political interviews usually go, where guests are often allowed to glide through with slick sound bites and polished deflections. Camilla wasn't having any of that. Whenever Street tried to pivot to his usual talking points, she cut in, pressing him to answer the real questions voters care about. She didn't just grill him with tough questions. She brought receipts. Quoting Labour MP Dan Carden, she laid out a damning picture of everyday life. Low wages, soaring prices, collapsing high streets, and public services stretched to breaking point. All while politicians make empty promises. Suddenly, Streeting wasn't just defending Labour's policies. He was fending off criticism from within his own party, and the pressure started to show when he tried to counter with statistics about rising wages and shorter NHS waiting times. Camilla pushed back again. She challenged the disconnect between those numbers and the reality people are actually living. On paper, things might sound fine, but for ordinary people, they simply aren't. This wasn't an interview. It was more like a public cross-examination, and this time, the politician didn't have anywhere to hide.
We'll get on to further and faster. Let's just read an alternative narrative to the one that you've just spun me there. People have had enough. Enough of low wages and sky-high bills. Enough of high streets being left to rot. Enough of crumbling infrastructure and public services that don't work. Enough of broken promises. Do you know who said that? It was your Labour colleague, the Labour MP Dan Carden. So even your own colleagues think that you're doing a bad job.
Well, I agree with Dan on every single word you've just read out there. I agree with him entirely, and I think that's the impatience people are feeling. That's why people are hungry for change, because all of those challenges, and there are many more that I could list besides, were challenges we walked into last July. And turning around the country with multiple and deep crises does take time. So the impatience that people are feeling, I feel, and that's one of the reasons why, in my day-to-day work, I'm constantly driving to go faster. I'm always being told by people to slow down. You know, I'm going harder.
Most people still aren't seeing any real change. If you're one of the 7 million stuck on an NHS waiting list, you probably rolled your eyes or even shouted at the television when someone claimed things were improving. Camilla wasn't having any of it. She said what so many are thinking right to his face. Don't tell me things are getting better when millions still aren't getting treatment. It was a rare moment on mainstream political television where someone actually pushed back against the Polish spin and said out loud what real people are feeling. And things only got more intense when the conversation moved to the winter fuel allowance cuts. Camilla didn't tiptoe around the issue. She called the policy what it was: deeply unpopular. She asked the uncomfortable but necessary question: and what about delaying support for heating costs for the elderly? Isn't that just political backpedaling? The criticism of that policy has been loud, even from the government's own supporters. Many have said it's the final straw, the reason they've turned their backs on labor. But Camilla didn't stop there. She stood her ground and called it one of the worst proposals Labor has ever put forward. Didn't she, Mr. Streeting? And as he fumbled to defend a policy he clearly didn't believe in, it was obvious to everyone watching he was struggling. Camilla's body language said just as much as her words. She leaned in, eyes locked on her guest. Her gestures were sharp and controlled. She wasn't letting anything slide. No vague answers, no rehearsed sound bites, just straight accountability. And that kind of toughness, it's rare, especially in a media space that's too often filled with soft interviews and dead-end questions. But the real unraveling came when the interview turned to Lucy Powell's controversial comments about gang grooming. Under Camilla's persistent, unflinching questioning, Streeting's responses started to fall apart. They didn't sound honest anymore, just scripted, forced, shaky. Then came another blow. When asked about the Northeast London NHS Trust's position on gender issues, he tried to dodge. But Camilla didn't let up. Eventually, he admitted it. He didn't even understand why the statement had been issued. That moment, raw and unfiltered, was rare. A politician stepping away from the script, exposed not by hostility, but by relentless, honest questioning. It happened because Camilla refused to play the game. This interview was a powerful reminder of what can happen when journalists actually do their job. Hold power to account. Seeing a senior politician squirm under real scrutiny made one thing painfully clear. Why isn't this the standard? The uncomfortable truth. Too many political journalists depend on access. They need politicians to keep showing up on their shows, and asking tough questions can burn those bridges. But when access becomes more important than truth, it's the public that pays the price. Camilla showed there's another way, a better way. One where honesty matters more than keeping the peace. And if we're serious about democracy, we need more of that. Because the real problem isn't the occasional soft interview. It's that political journalism has started leaning towards comfort and convenience, not accountability. When that happens, democracy doesn't die all at once. It erodes bit by bit. Wes Streeting's discomfort wasn't a misstep. It was proof that tough interviews work. And it's exactly what we should be seeing more of, not less. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next.